Off-grid living for mere mortals, even if it's not quite legal.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Offgrid Outlaw. This evening, the topic is what I have coined to be the greed apocalypse. We are fast approaching a state where, I don't want to say human greed. Human greed is kind of a assumption that people are rational and capable of reasoning, but a lot of the people that are guilty of this kind of greed, rapacious greed, without concern for the ethics of how they obtain their wealth, those people are the ones that this topic refers to. Now, of course, in the news, we've heard lots and lots of stories about corporate greed. Remember back in the early 70s when the Ford Motor Company manufactured the Pinto automobile, which had a design shortcoming which made it susceptible to gas tank fires and explosions on moderate rear-end impacts. The bottom line on that story was that Ford Motor Company decided that it was cheaper to pay off the millions of dollars in lawsuits due to loss of life and injury than to redesign the car. Another case in more recent years, the Boeing Corporation. We've heard some interesting stories about how they tried to cover up the design flaws in the 737 MAX, and they had a maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, which was designed to compensate for the peculiar geometry of the aircraft, which made normal piloting difficult, if not almost impossible. The short answer on this one is that they did not provide information to pilots about how the system worked, which seemed really a very poor choice, especially when you're introducing a new system that is a central core feature of the flight control system of an aircraft. In addition, there were allegations about this abuse and fraud, and there were two individuals who met with untimely and suspicious deaths. And that, again, was another situation where you have a big corporation using its power and influence to silence whistleblowers when there's a situation that is a public health hazard or a danger to public safety. Now, the large issue overall is that as a central banking system debases its currency, it makes it harder and harder for those living under that currency to make a profit and to thrive. So what happens is that people tend to cheat more, and the cheating increases over time until it reaches a point where it becomes genuinely apocalyptic. I think we are fast approaching that day now. We see it in the supermarkets. We see something that people have often referred to as shrinkflation. You go and buy a box of cereal. Last year it was, maybe 16 ounces. This year it's 13.5 ounces, but the box is the same size. But unless you have a keen eye and are one to constantly check those numbers, you may just not notice that little bit of shortchanging in product quantity. I remember back in the late 70s buying a replacement 15-inch speaker from Radio Shack, and I noticed that instead of the nice screw terminals, they had replaced it with a fish paper with solder terminals, and I pointed that out to the Radio Shack salesman, and he gave me this condescending look, and he made this remark, and I quote, "It's called holding a price." Well, that was an early example of shrinkflation that I noticed. Another thing I noticed too is that when you go shopping in big box stores, very often the vegetables are already rotten. I picked up a batch of tomatoes at a Costco sometime late last year, and I saw there was white fur growing between the cherry tomatoes in the package. Then, of course, there's the situation where you buy some potatoes, you get them home, and a day later, half of them are rotten. Well, I had a term for that one. I call it rotflation. Then we have the property tax problem, municipal waste. Money easily gotten is money easily spent. And because we have a system where the government gets money through force and fraud, I call it, they don't have to work as hard to use that money intelligently and economically to make every dollar go as far as possible. I mean, it's a really rare situation where you see a municipality that actually tries to control the expenditure of every dollar. There's one big problem in a lot of governments, and that is, I forgot what the rule is called, but it's basically boils down to use it or lose it, which is one of the reasons why you see the lights on in a baseball stadium after dark with nobody attending. There's no game. There's no fans in the stadium. It's completely empty, but all the lights are on, burning hundreds of kilowatt hours of electricity. It's because the towns have to spend out their budget, because if they don't, they'll get a smaller budget next year. And I think this is also true in some branches of the U.S. military, which is why there's so much waste and excess. Corporations lobby for laws that are anti-competitive, and this results in monopolies. They use the force of government through lobbying, which I think is a form of basically paid government bribery. It should be illegal. It's, I think, unethical. And it skews the purpose of government away from handling the three rational and moral purposes that government was originally instituted for, which are, one, provide a military to defend the nation's borders against invasion. Two, to provide police to protect individuals in the event that one party attempts to use force and fraud against another. Three, to provide courts to adjudicate differences among parties. No other moral purpose exists for government. And if government was constrained to those three main purposes, I'm pretty sure we could pay for it with the free market, or with lottery tickets or lotteries or casinos, or in some cases, maybe a municipally run entertainment center, like a large fair or playground or whatever that charges admission. There's lots and lots of ways to voluntarily fund a government that don't involve putting a gun to homeowners' heads. Debased currency is the root of most of these problems, because the more buying power that gets lost in the currency, the less value that people and industry are able to get out of those dollars. So this results in industry taking shortcuts. How can we make this thing cheaper without the customer noticing? One of the things now is that there's a science behind designing things like consumer electronics so that they will fail just about a month after the warranty expires. It's not a coincidence. It's not an accident. It's by design. There are ways to design things, and there's a lot of testing done to determine the lifespan of components, and they can fine-tune that to make something last 3 years plus 1 month, so that when that 3 years are up, the warranties run out. Say it was a 3-year warranty. A month later, the item goes belly up. Now you either have to pay an enormous amount of money to have it repaired, or you go out and buy a new one. And again, that takes me back to the 70s. Vance Packard wrote a book called The Waste Makers, recognizing the coming disposable throwaway society that we're fast slipping into. So industry starts to cut corners because their profits are being eaten away. And the only group that makes out from inflation is government, because they tax you on the numerical value of your income, your assets, etc. So the higher these numbers go due to inflation, monetary debasement, the more tax governments collect. When the price of gasoline goes up, states get a windfall because they collect that gas tax based on the price of a gallon of gas. So this whole problem spreads like a cancer all throughout layers of industry down to the consumer level. And then it even affects people on the street. You get more crime. When it becomes too difficult to earn an honest living, many people, especially disadvantaged classes of people, resort to criminal activity, looting, stealing, robbery, other types of crimes, cybercrime. This is a big thing in Eastern Europe because communism makes life impossible for people. I met people in the early 90s that just came in from Eastern Europe, new immigrants, and by God, you couldn't trust those people. They would try to pull one over on you because that's how they had to live in their country. That's the only way to survive, was through deceit and cheating. Of course, gradually, when people come into an economy where they're able to live by honest means, that behavior tends to fade away. But it also works in the other direction. As economies go downhill, people start to cheat more. So essentially, we have the situation now where we are reaching the greed apocalypse, where companies have gotten so greedy that everything now is a service they got to charge you for. You buy a new car. Maybe you get 1 year of complimentary connected services. After that, your remote start stops working. Your heated seats stop working. Oh, your engine performance cuts back. You know, some different manufacturers have been known to do that. Then you got to pay a monthly fee if you want those features back. So you buy a car thinking you're getting what you're getting, and then they take stuff away and sell it back to you, much the way our government takes away our rights and then sells them back to us in the form of licensing. So you have that situation where that's happening. It happens in the software world. We've gone from, you pay once for a software program and you use it until the next version comes out. Maybe you pay an upgrade fee and you buy the next version. Maybe not, depending on the company. And then there's situations where the new model now is the subscription-based model. And you buy a monthly subscription and forever, perpetually, you pay that monthly subscription. If you stop paying it, you lose access to your files. They've got you over a barrel when you get suckered into that kind of thing. So one of the problems, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That is the new slogan of the World Economic Forum. And we see it every day. Everything is moving in that direction. Big corporations are making it impossible for you to own a computer at this point now. Last fall, the prices of memory sticks and solid state drives have gone up 500% because data centers have formed contracts with these companies, and companies like Micron have decided to stop selling to the general public, the consumer, and now they're only selling to these big data centers. So that's created a shortage of memory on the market. Prices have gone up. Now it's becoming difficult to build a new PC. And the end result is people like Bill Gates want you to rent computing power in the cloud. And again, pay that monthly fee. You'll have a thin client, basically a dumb terminal with no processing power and no storage. All your files will be in the cloud. All the computing power will be in the cloud, and you'll pay by how many, some unit of computational power. If you're doing word processing, you'll pay one fee. If you're doing 3D modeling and rendering, or you're doing artificial intelligence, something that's calculation heavy, you'll pay another fee that's a much higher amount. There's already a lot of services where you can, purchase credits to use to make, small movies, images, whatever, using artificial intelligence. And there's quite a bit of this stuff floating around the internet now, something that people have coined the term AI slop. These corporations are finding ways to milk every last dollar out of the consumer. And we're at that point now where you won't be able to do anything without putting money in somebody else's pocket. 100 years ago, you could take a stick and a string and put a worm on the end of it and go fishing in the stream and go catch your dinner. Nowadays, you need a fishing license. You need to buy a commercial rod and reel. You need to buy all this bait and tackle from some store. And, there's just so many things that involve multiple parties that got their hands in your pocket. Not like it used to be years ago. So we're at that point where the public, the consumer, has to make a decision to either continue supporting this greed or to say at some point, I'm not going to buy these products anymore. The 3D printer that you can't buy, or you can buy, but you can't print this thing or that thing because that's a restricted item, or this looks like something that's restricted and we won't let you print it. I remember back 25 years ago when inkjet printers and scanners had to have this built-in technology, so you couldn't scan banknotes or certificates of deposit or other particular instruments of finance uh, without the printer either watermarking or flagging it or disabling the machine entirely, requiring a service call. And then, of course, a call to the Secret Service because they think maybe you're trying to counterfeit money. But, it's absolutely ludicrous to think that somebody's going to pass off a fake $20 bill that's printed out on a printer with inkjet paper. Even a kid can tell the difference between that monopoly money and a real $20 bill. But nevertheless, I saw the writing on the wall 30 years ago. That's where it's going. And, you have less and less control and less ownership of things. Right to repair, that's another big issue. There's somebody on YouTube who's been a big advocate of that. I used to watch him repair MacBook Pros, but then about 7-8 years ago, right to repair became such a big issue that he pretty much devoted all his videos to politics after that. And I'm not surprised at the reasoning because it really is a problem these days. The greed apocalypse. We are at that point now where big corporate America has to make a profit despite the fact that the government is stealing all your buying power by inflating the currency. Now, back in 1988, I bought a new computer system from a company that was a graphics company. And at the time, I didn't know much about it. The owner of the company was from Romania, and he was well educated, spoke 6 languages, and he showed me a Lotus 123 spreadsheet he had worked out. Now, back at that time, a good income was about $50,000 a year. So he based his calculations on that. He calculated in not only inflation, but the taxes on everything you buy, the licenses, the fees, all these hidden taxes that are all in along the way. The bottom line is, according to his calculations, the average American paid 92% of their income in taxes of one form or another, whether it be taxes on the suit of clothes you bought, passed down by the manufacturer in the form of higher prices, or whether it be your car registration, or the fine you had to pay because your grass was an inch too long and the local town didn't like that. That was an eye-opener. And it made me understand why the guy making $8,000 a year under the table could live the same lifestyle as the guy making $50,000 a year and paying all his taxes. So again, the government's greed is a cancer that filters down to everybody down below. The government cheats, everybody else cheats down below it. And once you have that kind of chain of reaction going on, there goes any honesty and morality in society. It's all over. Once it happens, once we reach that stage, I don't think there's any turning back. And certainly not with the way things are going with public education, as it were. And I use that term very loosely. Anyway, I've said pretty much what I want to say in this one. Just remember that term, the greed apocalypse. Every time you go to the store and you see higher prices or a smaller package or less contents in it, that's what's happening. Anyway, that's it for this one. See you all in the next one.